If you were around trucks in the early 1990s, you remember how the diesel wars felt. Dodge had just changed everything. Chevy was scrambling, and Ford, the company that sold more trucks than anybody in America, was getting quietly embarrassed at the one thing that was starting to matter most: power. For 5 long years, Ford didn't have an answer. Their diesel was honest, it was reliable. But next to what Dodge was doing, it felt like bringing a butter knife to a gunfight. Fleet guys noticed, farmers noticed, and the salesman at the Ford lot sure noticed when a customer walked across the street to look at a Dodge. Then, halfway through 1994, with almost no warning, Ford dropped something on the table that flipped the whole fight on its head. It walked in late, looked around the room at every diesel pickup in America, and took the crown from all of them. This is the story of the 7.3L Powerstroke, the engine that turned Ford from the company playing catch-up into the company everybody else was chasing. And if buried truck history like this is your thing, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more where this came from. To understand why this engine mattered so much, you have to understand how bad things had gotten for Ford. Back in 1989, Dodge did something nobody saw coming. They took an engine built by Cummins, a company that made diesels for big rigs and farm equipment, and they bolted it into a pickup truck. That 5.9-liter inline-six changed the rules overnight. Suddenly a man could buy a 3/4-ton pickup that pulled like a small semi. It had a turbo, it had real torque, and it made everything else on the lot look soft. Ford was caught flat-footed. Their diesel at the time was the 7.3 IDI, built by International. Now that was a tough old engine, and it would run a long time, but it was gutless, it was loud, and against that Cummins, it just didn't have the muscle. Chevy wasn't doing any better with their 6.5, so for half a decade, if you wanted the strongest diesel pickup in America, you bought a Dodge, period. Ford knew they couldn't let that stand. So behind closed doors, they went back to International, and together they built something completely new. When the 7.3 Powerstroke showed up in the middle of 1994, here's what it brought to the fight: 210 horsepower, 425 pound-feet of torque. Now, by today's numbers, that sounds like nothing. But park it next to the competition in 1994 and watch what happens. The Dodge Cummins, the king that had ruled for 5 years? In a lot of trucks, it was making around 175 horsepower. The Chevy 6.5, about 180 horsepower and only 360 pound-feet of torque. Ford didn't just catch up. Ford walked in and became the most powerful diesel pickup engine in America on day one. It was the first diesel in the segment to crack 200 horsepower. And the company that had been the punchline of the diesel wars was suddenly sitting at the head of the table. But the horsepower number was only half of it, because the real secret was what was going on inside that engine. Everybody else was still using an injection pump. Old school, mechanical, the way diesels had always done it. Ford and International did something nobody in a pickup had done before. They used a system called HEUI. Now don't let the name scare you. Here's all it means. Instead of a pump pushing fuel to the injectors, this engine used its own high-pressure engine oil to fire them. A pump built oil pressure up to around 3,000 pounds, and inside each injector, that pressure got multiplied until it was slamming fuel into the cylinder at over 20,000 pounds of pressure. That was Caterpillar-developed technology, and it was years ahead of anything Dodge or Chevy had under the hood. It gave the 7.3 cleaner combustion, better cold starts, and the kind of electronic control that let Ford fine-tune the thing without rebuilding the whole engine. And here's the part the old-timers love. The 7.3 wasn't really a pickup engine at all. Underneath, it was International's T444E, a real commercial truck engine. The same basic power plant that went into school buses, box trucks, and delivery rigs that ran every single day for a living. Ford took a heavy-duty workhorse and dropped it into a pickup. It had a cast-iron block. It had cast-iron heads. The early ones had forged steel connecting rods, and at 444 cubic inches, it was the biggest diesel ever offered in a 3/4 or 1-ton pickup in this country. a great big V8 going up against Dodge's six-cylinder. Now Dodge wasn't going to take the loss quietly. In 1996, they pushed the Cummins back up, beat the Ford on paper. So what did Ford do? They answered with a simple computer recalibration and beat Dodge right back by 10 horsepower and 10 pound-feet. No new parts, just turned the wick up. Then, in 1999, the 7.3 became the first diesel pickup engine in America to hit 500 pound-feet of torque. By the end of its run, it was making 275 horsepower and 525 pound-feet. Ford didn't just win one fight in 1994. Ford started a torque war that, honestly, is still going on today. Every time you see a new truck bragging about 1,000 pound-feet, it traces right back to that moment Ford decided it was done getting embarrassed. But here's the thing. Power is what made the 7.3 famous. Durability is what made it a legend. Because Ford and International built this engine soft on purpose. They never wound it up tight. It made its power down low, around 2,700 revolutions per minute, and it never strained itself the way the competition did. The cylinder pressures stayed low. The engine just loafed along, doing serious work without ever fighting itself. And an engine that doesn't stress itself doesn't break itself. So what you got was an engine that simply would not die. 400,000 miles. 500,000 miles. There are 7.3s out there in the million-mile club, still running on the original block. Ford rated it for 350,000 miles before half of them would even have a major problem. Compare that to what came after. When emissions rules tightened and Ford replaced it with the 6.0, those new engines gave people no end of grief. The 7.3 came from a simpler time. No EGR cooler to crack, no particulate filter to clog. Just iron and oil and an engine that ran forever. The guys who owned these trucks knew exactly what they had. There's a story every 7.3 owner will tell you. The most common little failure on these engines was a camshaft position sensor. Cheap part, easy fix. But it could leave you stranded. So owners learned to keep a spare sensor and an 8mm wrench right in the glove box, right next to the registration, like a spare tire. Pull over, swap it on the shoulder in 10 minutes, and keep on rolling. That tells you everything about the relationship these men had with their trucks. And that's why, more than 30 years later, these things are worth real money. A clean, rust-free 7.3 with the paperwork to back it up can bring more than $20,000 today. The rare low-mile ones go for $30,000 and up, more than newer trucks that came after it. Even die-hard Cummins guys and Duramax guys, the ones who'll argue with you all day at the parts counter, will go quiet and admit it. The 7.3 was one of the best diesel engines ever put in a pickup. Almost 2 million of them were built, and a huge number are still on the road right now, still working. So that's the truth about the 7.3 Powerstroke, the engine that took a company that was losing the diesel war and made it the leader overnight. The one that beat every diesel in America the day it arrived, and then outlived most of them by a couple 100,000 miles. If you want to see the engine that started this whole fight, the Cummins 12-valve that kicked the door in back in 1989, that video's right here. And if you've still got a 7.3 running in your driveway, tell me the mileage down in the comments. I'd love to know how high some of you have gotten. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.